So I want to start with you because this was your first time ever seeing Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost
Yeah.
Ark. And what were your fresh thoughts? I'm amazed you made it
Um,
this far without ever seeing any of them, but go
well,
ahead.
I mean, I've seen clips and like parts of them when people were watching them, but I've never actually sat down and seen one all the way through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the closest one I ever made it to doing that was the one with his son, which I don't even remember which title that is, but whatever. Um, it's not what I expected. Um, I I didn't really. Oh man, I don't want to say this right out of the gate, but I don't really like the indie character. Um,
Uh-huh. Go on.
I don't know
Great
that
way to
you're.
start
I
this
think
series.
I think you're supposed to like him, but I'm not really sure why. Because the
Mm-hmm.
first thing we see him do, well, okay, to be fair, the first thing we see him do is very acutely navigate a bunch of traps that other people have clearly failed at. And that shows skill and determination and like intelligence. So it was a pretty good way to introduce your character. But I also felt like the moment he started interacting with like natives and he was like on the wrong side of the natives, and I'm fully aware of the fact that the other guy was taking advantage of the natives as well, but he was like stealing their thing. And then when he gets back, his like dean or the guy whoever is in charge of him is like, oh, I'm sure everything you do is up to code. And like fully acknowledging the fact that like this guy is just stealing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then throughout the rest of the movie, he continues to be like kind of rude and
Oh yeah.
sometimes fully
He's a
incapable.
he's a rough,
Um,
rough little guy.
yeah, and I think my expectation going in was something significantly different. Like I expected sort of like a well, and this is a little basic, but a little Han Solo esque, where it was like
Oh.
perfect. He's not a good soul necessarily, right? But he at least has a code of ethics, and
Mm-hmm.
like I guess Indy kind of does because he doesn't really want anybody to die. He does intentionally save some lives when they're
Right.
not actively fighting him, but it's like I don't know. I think I came in with a completely different expectation than what I got. Most like, and at first I was annoyed with like the female character and Indy specifically for this, but then I realized it's like all of the characters. Literally, no character does anything that doesn't backfire. Every
Mm-hmm.
single action that every single character takes ends up working out in like the worst possible way for them, with the exception of like the fact that Indy and what is her name?
Marion.
Marion survive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and technically at the end of the movie, the Ark is like owned by the US government, but then it just gets put in a box and
Mm-hmm.
disappears in all the other boxes, and it's basically just lost again. So, did anything really happen in this
Well,
movie?
see, that's actually really funny because did you see that Big Bang Theory episode by any chance?
I am familiar with the concept of like if you removed him from this movie, it would all still happen the way that it happened, essentially.
Yes, I have seen counters to that, which I do agree with. I also feel like even if you do and it still happens like that, I don't think it really matters all that much. I think there are more
Mm-hmm.
movies like that than people are willing to acknowledge. I was thinking about
Mm-hmm.
it. I feel like the most recent Batman is basically that
Yeah.
because the Riddler would still happen and the seawall would still blow up and things would still like everything like that would still happen if you take Batman out of that movie. It's probably more complicated than that, but what
To
I
simplify it.
yeah, but what I was trying to pay attention to this time watching it, because I've seen it a couple of times now. They, so yeah, the whole thing is that they only find the Ark because of Indiana Jones. Now, if you take
Mm-hmm.
Indiana Jones out, the immediate argument is like, well, no, because they were looking in the wrong place because they only had half of the medallions. Like, yeah, but if you take him
They
out,
weren't
they
that
would
far
have,
off,
well,
though.
that too, but they would have had the whole medallion because they went to
Yeah.
go get it. But they only knew where Marion was because they followed Indy there. They
True.
show that in the part where he gets on the plane. They were
Mm-hmm.
trying to find, at some point somewhere in there in the past, they were looking for her dad, didn't know how. He figured that
Mm-hmm.
she'd be the connection to it. So this whole thing is only kicked off because of him. And I also feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's less a testament to his inability to affect the story and more a testament to it's a relatively intriguing villain, because everything that could, like, you could make the same argument. Everything Indy does ends up going nowhere. Well, it's because everything he does is countered by Belloc, who gets lucky continuously. Whereas Jones is doing everything right. That's the whole point. It's the whole opening scene is Jones does everything right and Belloc gets lucky. Then, they set it up right in the beginning, and that's the whole movie. And I think that's kind of cool the way they did that. I also feel like, in a way, it doesn't take away from the entertainment value. I still love watching him get in and out of crazy situations. When he crawls under the truck, love that. That's an awesome sequence. I think it's cool. You're not vibing
that was
with the
what
whole...
I laughed at.
I thought that was cool. It's unrealistic, but it's cool.
I mean, I acknowledge the puzzle element of that whole thing, but the amount of absolute pain that he would be in would probably make it impossible for him to hold on to the bottom of that.
But, Mac, that's every movie. That's every movie.
You're right. I feel like in this one, the amount of shenanigans was so high that I was just like, does anyone have any sense of control of what's happening?
There's definitely a lot of shenanigans, but my suspension of disbelief for physical durability is going to be a little bit higher when you open a portal to heaven. Like, I'm okay with that when you do stuff like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, they hadn't done that yet, but yeah.
But I've already seen it. I know going in. You know. But I don't want to.
They also not that it had to be. Because that's critiquing any fun film for its accurate portrayal of history or myth or whatever. But they got a lot about the Ark pretty wrong.
Oh, of course they did.
Yeah.
Come on now.
It's fine because it's clearly just a fun mythical thing. But
atheist and a Christian watch Raiders of the Lost Ark.
There were so many times where I was sitting there, I was like, they'd be dead. They're all dead. Okay, they're dead.
Do you do that for every movie, though? Okay, I'm very intrigued as to what you were expecting going into this movie.
Because if you even touched the parts that hold up the Ark, not even the Ark itself, just the parts that hold the Ark, and you hadn't gone through all the cleansing rituals, dead.
This is a different version, okay? This is a different version of that. You don't need the rituals.
It's okay. Like I said, that's not a legit critique on the film. I just thought it was really funny. Fair
enough. You have a unique perspective. So I what you said though about his character though, I find I'm in the same boat, but I'm conflicted in that I feel more. I find his intellectual side to be very genuine, even though we know as a people, we know tomb robbing is bad, but he's clearly doing it from a legitimate standpoint of historical preservation. Is it good? No, but he thinks he's doing something good, and he's doing it for educational and academic purposes, and I really vibe with that. He doesn't care about the money value, and I across the movies, I enjoy that aspect of his character. I like that we do get to see immediately opening sequence him being smart. It's cool for us little 10-year-olds to watch the big man go and fight with swords and whips and rocks and horses and all that kind of stuff, but the fact that he's super connected to, invested in the intellectual side of it. It's it's the thing we don't get very often from the best Batman movies. They don't balance both those sides super well. Definitely. And I think with Jones, they typically do. Now, I don't want to get too into this because we'll talk about it in the coming weeks, but upon having watched more of them, this is my maybe second least favorite, because in the next one, he's doing things actively to help people. Whereas that's not a thing here. This is very much a self-driven, even though it's for academic purposes, it's also for the glory of it. And in the next coming films, it's more my hands are tied or someone needs something done versus let's go find this awesome treasure so I can say I did it. And I like that a lot. I like that aspect of his character more that we'll see in later movies. That's not super explored here. It doesn't help that the person he brought into this, he continuously doesn't save. Even though it makes sense narratively, it's not great when you keep putting her in danger. And then other people on the internet did the math when she talked about the things you did to me and how old they're supposed to be in this movie. And the thing that happened was 10 years ago. It's not good. The math didn't work out well. So like, no,
I mean,
no one.
She starts out by saying, "I was a child."
Oh yeah.
And I wouldn't,
yeah. No, apparently, according to the math, yeah, she was. Now, this is not a defense of that, but in their time period, it would have been like the 30s. Things were different. That's not a defense. It's not a defense.
No, I totally understand that. I'm actually a really big proponent of understanding the time that the stories are like written in.
Gross time.
But it's still I mean, obviously, even the film itself was acknowledging the fact that it was a problem, right?
Like, but it's also one of those things.
What I kind of thought was weird is a lot of this movie goes out of its way to make Indiana look like kind of a bad dude,
right?
And I didn't expect that.
But it's also one of those things that were like, you didn't need to include that. You just didn't.
That's fair.
You didn't need to do that. It was not necessary. But yeah,
I liked a lot of the filming choices, like the constant use of shadows as like a way to introduce a character or something, or like intro a character.
Long shots as well, like long uninterrupted. I love where he's explaining to the government men the arc, because it's a longer shot of all just them, him being the little intellectual that he is in this moment. Like I really do. I do like Spielberg as a filmmaker, if I could be a bit of a snob for a second, because like he does good stuff. I like the stuff he does. It's cool.
Yeah. And the music was good. Although I will say I expected more music. It was mostly just like the hero leitmotif played over and over again. And it's great. It worked. It was just sort of like I thought I was going to get more variation. I think I was kind of, for some reason, John Williams went like super hard on the How to Train Your Dragon soundtrack. And I think that's a kind of level of intensity that I was thinking here. Was that not? No, that's John Powell. Yeah.
That's why you're conflicted, is because it's a different dude. Yeah.
A different dude altogether.
It's also, I don't know what all he was doing. I mean, this movie now is over 40 years old. So there's going to be a lot that's different.
A growth. Yeah. Growth for the guy, for sure.
Yeah, because it's after Star Wars, but before Harry Potter, and it's the first Jones. He did, I'm confident in saying he did either all or most of the Jones, and all or most of the Potters. So, his stuff is still going to grow and develop as well. Was there anything more, I suppose, specifically you didn't enjoy about the movie, or something else that really stood out that you did like?
Let's see. I think my main takeaway was that now that I have an adjusted expectation and understanding of the character, I'd be interested to see how I enjoyed the future films. But honestly, I was just, in the first part of the movie, I was just so blindsided about how consistently he was like essentially a rogue. And then like throughout the rest of the movie was them trying things and then just not being able to follow through on those things. Like even the villains, like they have these plans. Literally no one's plans follow all the way through. There are always hiccups, bumps, or backfires in all of their plans. Which I thought was mostly good, but it did make me a little dizzy at times, where I was like, wait, what are we even trying to do right now? Because once the arc is in play, it's obvious. Have possession of the arc. But for a while, especially with the plane fight, they spend a really long time on this plane fight. The initial idea was that they'd get on the plane and not be seen, but if the only way on the plane is the tiny little cockpit,
right? What were you gonna do? Yeah.
How are you gonna hide that?
I do go back and forth with the plane scene in the times that I've watched it. Every now and then, it's either really great when I'm into it, because I love the part where it's still spinning and they're fighting on top of it, and we can see the fire moving across the pool of gasoline. Yes. That's a brilliant shot. But at the same time, it goes on for a while, and I find myself getting a little bored if I'm tired or had a long day,
Well, and I like that Indy gets tired of the fights.
Yes.
I like that Indy is not constantly let's throw down. He's just kind of okay, fine, let's fight, and then he does the best that he can. But it's like that scene did a good couple of shots like that. But then like he doesn't get a break. He goes straight into like the car chase scene, and then he does a bunch of whole other crazy stuff.
That's gonna be all the movies, so you better strap in for that specific aspect.
I mean, okay, yeah, that's actually a large part of the movies. That's actually what made it enjoyable for me. Is I liked the shenanigans, the fight choreography, the cleverness of all the character choices during the choreography. But I gotta say, I don't know that I'm a general fan of the script per se. I like the movie making parts of this, but I feel like the story or maybe like the lines of dialogue are not always super good. It could just be that they, like this being a first movie, they didn't put a lot of effort into it. They're like, it's a fun action movie. Here are the characters. Let's do it. And then it got enough popularity that they went back to the drawing board a little bit. And they're like, all right, let's sharpen these up a little bit. Let's make the relationships a little bit more interesting, which is why he's maybe helping people in the next movie. So I'm very interested to see how that develops as we move forward in the series.
That's
I guess that's mostly what I have to say.
Yeah, we'll see if your expectations are met.
We'll see.
Yeah. What would you, if you had to give this one a rating, what would you give it?
Ooh, like out of 10?
Yeah, we'll say out of 10.
It was enjoyable, but I have questions. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. So like 7.
That's kind of where I'm at too, which a lot of people would be angry about. A lot of people in the nerd and movie world consider this, you know, I mean, it is a pillar in the nerd world for sure. But yeah, I mean, even in the Jones movies, it's not my favorite one. It's a lot of
Star Wars movies that I don't like to rewatch because they reminds me of how bad they are. I feel like this might be kind of one of those. Like, I'm not saying that it's a bad film. I'm just saying that, like, I'm not sure how often we want to rewatch it to remember the good old days of Indiana Jones, because I don't know that it really does that.
That's fair. That's fair. We'll see. I've also found, though, that my opinion on the Indiana Jones films individually has shifted as time has gone on. Like, when I only watched them all in, like, 2018. I was late to all of them as well. When I first watched them, I did not like the second one at all. As time goes on, I found I like the second one more and more. The third one is maybe my favorite, and we'll get to that later on. But any other final thoughts? I don't know. Did you? I like Saul. Is it Saul? Saul. I just can't remember his name. I just watched it.
Oh, his like contact.
Yeah, I love his character. He's really great and fun. How'd you feel about the monkey? Was that too much?
I was a little confused by the monkey's motivations.
He's a spy.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I think ultimately the way the monkey was used in his final scene, I actually really liked.
Right, that was cool.
Where he ate the dates, and then the guy, you know, Saul just happened to see that right as Indy was going to eat one, caught it. Like that's good scene writing right there. Everything was pretty tight. The audience went, "Wait, how do you know?" And then they, you know, show you the dead monkey, and you're like, you know.
And throughout that whole scene, he almost puts it in his mouth like 3 times. Like, I'm always fully in on that one. It's like, oh no. Okay, cool. That was close.
See, like that sort of like blocking, that sort of like action writing is pretty good in these films, but in this film. But I feel like that's kind of all it had going for it. I do like the uniqueness of the characters that they introduced, but I feel like they just didn't feel quite right. Yeah, I wouldn't choose to be around any of those people.
Not even Marcus. He's a laid back kind of guy.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, you know, the guy we're calling Saul, like that, he's seemed pretty chill, but also seemed willing to sell you out. I don't really know.
No, how dare you? Very willingly. He would not. Yeah. He's got a family. The only conflicting or questionable thing I think he does is send his whole family of children into a room full of guns to protect Indy. Like, we're assuming they're not gonna kill him because of the kids. Like, that was a bold move.
Fair.
But yeah, that's Indiana Jones 1. We're 1 in. Whoop whoop.
Woo! We're doing it.
Yeah, we gave it a 7. So
I'm
strong.
Sorry, internet. That's
so
how
strong.
I feel.
On to the next.